Hey guys, this is WantClue, and we're sitting right in front of a new release for XOS, calling the version 2.9.0. So let's dive right into it and let's take a look on what kind of changes we see, and later on we also do compare it to the latest version. As you can see, and as always, we are back again on GitHub, and we want to quickly go over all the changes that we do have for this upcoming release, which will be released later today. So depending on the time you're watching this video, the version 2.9.0 might already be out or not, but I do assume it will already be out. This is just a matter of minutes or hours and not days. So the first thing that we do have is a quick overview over all the new features that we do have. The first thing is we have a new clear button that does filter the real-time logs added by TerraTagged. We also do have a little bit of sorting when it comes to the swarm table columns, which is nice and a nice new neat feature. Thanks DuckX for doing that. We also now have a browser tab title by DuckX, as well as we now have some release notes, and I want to show you this in just a second. Then the next one is that we have XOS versioning, and it does give you a warning if there's a mismatch between the ESP-minor binary file and the www.binary file. If there's any mismatch, you will see this and you will get annoyed, because what we want to make sure is that you do have the latest versions of the front end and the back end running on your machine. Now, another new nice feature is the one statistics slider. Previously, we had like two sliders to set up your statistics over time. This has now been combined into one single slider, which is a little bit more neat and a nicer new feature. We also have rethinked the navigation bar to the left-hand side. This has been done by DuckX. Thanks for doing that, as well as refreshing the logs page in general. Another cool new feature here is that we have the hostname and Wi-Fi RSSI at the header menu. What exactly this means, you will just find out in a second. Another cool feature is that we do have the Stratum response time added by me. If you do use a NerdX or NerdQX, you probably have seen this, that on the WebUI there's a feature called ping, where it does occasionally ping the pool and tells you what kind of milliseconds it takes to respond back to you. What we implemented is that as soon as you do send some answers over to the pool, it will measure the time it takes for the pool to respond with a receiving message to that. Because what we want to measure is like the real response time that it takes for the pool to operate or to process your work and give you back an answer of, all right, I got that and it looks good. Another improvement is in the notifications, as well as a new nice loading animation, and the pool difficulty column has been added onto Swarm. Let's go over to the API improvements. Add board family to the API, as well as the API returns a JSON error for unhandled requests, which has been fixed. And the fallback code for the device model and swarm colors has been added. One important thing about the API here is that there are a couple of changes when it comes to the API, and you could call it like breaking changes. If anybody of you is developing anything on the API of the Bitaxe, make sure to stay up to date with the APIs that you do have on the Bitaxe, especially on the most latest firmware versions. Rolling into newer firmwares, there will be more changes coming into the API section, so be aware about that. There are also a couple improvements when it comes to the Stratum. We are now having a send mining suggest difficulty after the authorization. So previously this was before the authorization. Now this has been moved into a later position, which is okay and works just fine. We also have added the parasite pool to the quick links, and we also have the extra non-subscribe and suggest difficulty pool options by Mutatrum here. Also, there is a new config field for the Stratum. When it comes to the hardware and display enhancements, we do have a couple of improvements here as well. The first thing is the share submit notification has been added to your display. So whenever your Bitaxe does submit a new share to the pool, a small dot will appear on the top right corner. Check it out if you have updated to the latest firmware. There's also now a custom board configuration added by Mutatrum. So when you do have a custom board that you want to add with XOS, you can just do that in there. There's also now a signal strength indicator to the screen, which has been added by me and should give you a little bit more of a clear indication about the Wi-Fi connection and a lot of other things. Also the SH1107, which does have 64 by 128 pixels, has been finally completed in adding it into this firmware. There's also a little bit of simplification when it comes to the Wi-Fi screen, so the code has been refactored there. Also, another nice thing here is that the TPS 546 phase register has been fixed by power manning. Thanks for doing that, as well as we do have some improved record reading handling by Killer Inc. When it comes to the documentation, we do have some changes when it comes to the kconfig project build. We also have a little bit of an update on the README by me, as well as an update to the API examples in the docs, as well as some cleanup when it comes to the Swarm endpoints by Fox. Thanks for doing that. And another README update. Now, an important thing when it comes to the bug fixes, we have working tremendously on making sure that everything works as smooth as possible. So here are the bug fixes that we have implemented. The first thing is a fix for the chart tooltip to reset on every data change, which was good because previously there was an issue where your data changes, it did some hiccup with the actual chart on your screen or on your WebUI. The next thing is that we now have improvement for the locks full screen mode, which has been introduced earlier in a previous version, and now it has been improved. The closing button was on a position where it was not staying sticky on the screen, which led to a couple of issues. Now this is no longer the case. Another nice thing here is a memory leak fix when it comes to the info API by Motachum. Thanks for doing that. We also do have an LVGL upstream bug added by me in here, or fixed by me. And then we also do have a wait after socket creation by Killer Inc. Thanks for doing that. So if you do try to connect via a socket to this device, now there should be a little bit more time for the response, and this should just improve the performance overall. There's also a fix when it comes to the Angular build warnings by Bitaxe. Thanks for doing that. Another major thing here, or it just took a little bit, was a bug fix when it comes to how do we handle all the files when it comes to the front end, so XOS. There was a little hiccup on that, so we fixed that and made sure everything looks as clean as possible. Also, we do have some fix when it comes to the label icon wrapping at the pull page by Bitaxe as well. Also, a couple of fixes when it comes to the starting and naming in the time response. The Swarm scan shouldn't emit any errors, and this has been smoothly fixed by Motachum. Thanks for doing that. Swarm should handle devices without any ASIC endpoints. This was a interesting fix here because with changing a couple of things on the Swarm page, it introduced that other devices were no longer being recognized. This has been fixed by this. And while we were working on the Swarm page anyway, there were a couple of other bugs that have been fixed. One is that the restart and the edit button didn't work for certain devices. Now they do again, as well as a fix when it comes to the settings page. We also have a couple of XOS code quality and refactorings here. So first thing is we have a refactoring when it comes to the power and heat cards, as well as a uniform icon only for button or only buttons by Bitaxe, which is a nice thing to add here. We also do have an introduction into modal components. I'll show you what this means in just a second. The next thing is the FUP. We now do have use modal components for the release notes. This is an interesting one, and we want to dive into this in just a second. The next one is a refactored settings component, as well as headers, SVG logos, as well as some fixes when it comes to the SVG content type by Motachum in here as well. Also, the fixed selected accent colors after page reloads is a crucial part here. You don't want to have your XOS look a little bit messy, so this has been fixed. The embedded XOS logo as inline SVG has been introduced, as well as some fixed outlines on the logo itself. When it comes to code quality and refactoring, we have a little bit of changes here as well. We have set the free outhouse frequency to 1 kilohertz and enabled the bootloader compiling optimization by FromPort. Thanks for doing that and PRing that into it. We also have a little bit of cleanup when it comes to the ASIC reset code by Mutatrum. Thanks for doing that. Uniforming logging tags is also an interesting and important thing here. We don't want to mess around with too many different tags for logging. We have also the ASIC init frequency in power management, which was previously in a different one and has been now moved. The self-test check and Wi-Fi code has also been moved to modules. Now with the version 2.9.0, the Bitaxe Ultra board version 207 has been added officially to this repository as well. This one has never really been built, so therefore we never really added it. But a couple of people in the community built it anyway and were telling us, well, it does work, so we added it. We also do have a little bit of remove when it comes to duplicates on the fonts and production builds by Bitaxe. Thanks for doing that, as well as some optimization on the fonts in general. E. Anderson was bumping up the NPM packages, which is nice and needed because you always want to make sure that you do stay with the latest and greatest software things that are available to you. We also have some removal of ASIC-specific code when it comes to the front end, as well as a remove of the not module. We also have some improved status messages on the self-test finish by Mutatrum. Thanks for doing that. When it comes to the API changes, we now do have API system info, which does have two changes or three. The stratum diff has been renamed to pool difficulty, the flip screen has been replaced by rotation, and the ASIC count has now been moved over to the ASIC API endpoint. The ASIC API endpoint also now does feature device model, swarm color, and ASIC count. That's it when it comes to all the changes. Now we want to dive into these two versions. So if you now take a look on these two devices, on the left hand side we do have the Bitaxe Gamma with the version 2.9.0 and on the right hand side we do have a Bitaxe Gamma with the version 2.8.1. Don't get distracted by the hash rate. I do have mine heavily underclocked or a little bit underclocked because it's way too hot in here and I'm just burning. So anyway, let's quickly open up the menus and let's see what has changed here. First things first, that you do see we have a Wi-Fi icon on the top left corner as well as a restart button now here instead of this big button. Also, if you do take a closer look on the menu itself, some things have changed. Previously, we had dashboard, swarm network, pool settings, customization settings, logs, and the white paper. Now it has been changed basically into three sections. You see the first one, which does feature the dashboard, swarm, your logs, and system information. And then a second section with pool, network information, themes, settings, and the update functionality, as well as having then a third section for the white paper. So this looks just a little bit better and is nicer in general. So now let's go back and let's scroll down here a little bit when we're taking a look on both of these units. You do see that it has been enhanced a little bit when it comes to the overall card selection. Now it's not just too big, it is more readable, it just looks nicer on the fresh new web interface. Now let's go up again and let's go into the menu and let's make sure that we head over to the swarm functionality. Both of these devices should figure out all the other devices that I do have in my web interface or in my home network available. You do see previously that all of these devices did have different colors. This has been changed now because what we did now is we introduced this ASIC API endpoint, which does feature the device model, and depending on this device model, it actually gives you a color. Currently, the Node X and the Node QX series, they do not have any color, but we do expect that a couple of changes are also introduced in the next release for these versions, and with that, it should be coming back. Overall, nothing really has changed that much, apart from that you now do see you can sort basically everything. From the API, from the IP to the hostname to the hash rate to the shares to the best difficulty and the uptime. You can basically make sure to sort them in any way you like. So now let's open up the menu again and let's go over to logs. This is now the third thing that you can do, and here we go to the old logs. So the first thing that you do see, you go right away into the real-time logs. And what you can do on both of these versions is taking a look on how it does look, but you can also maximize the locks to a nicer view. One big thing that was an issue here was previously this icon to minimize the locks on the right hand side was floating away while the locks were increasing or getting longer. This is no longer the case with the new version. Also, what I can make sure is I can type in anything I want to see. For example, async result. And now the only thing that will be locked to me are the async results, which is really nice and handy to have. I can also clear the locks and make sure that I only see whatever filter I do apply to it. So now let's go over to System, which is a new menu item, but what it does is basically giving you this overview that you had previously here, now in a nicer and better overview. You see your device model, it is colored in the scheme that you choose. The next thing is obviously your uptime and your Wi-Fi status, as well as the Wi-Fi RSSI. And what we also do see is we have a firmware version as well as the XOS version. This is crucial. If these ones are not the same, things will look different, and you will have like an orange header over here that will tell you something is not running correct here. Please make sure that the web interface and the firmware for your device is the same. The next thing is the pool section. If you go over there, both of them look kind of similar, but a couple of changes are here anyway. So the first thing is we now do have an enable extra nonce subscribe, which does also feature a little info icon here for you. It is required by some of these pools. Check the pool for documentation. This is not telling you that much, but what it actually allows you is to use some of these mining hash rate selling platforms like Mining Rig Rentals, or there are also other ones, but basically all of them require KYC if I'm not mistaken. It requires you to enable extra nonce subscribe, and this is now possible with that. Apart from that, it is added to both, and both of these sections are better separated now and look just nicer. If you now go over to the network section, this should be the same on both. We just get the host name, we get the Wi-Fi SSID that we want to connect to, we can look up new Wi-Fi networks, and then we can go over to theme, which is also the same on both. It has been renamed to theme. Previously it was called design or customization, but it's not really a customization, it's just a theme configuration, so here you go. The next thing is in settings. Let's go over to settings. If you do take a look on that, basically all of these things kind of look the same, apart from some important things. The flip screen is no longer there. This has been removed and is now set into something called rotation. You can rotate your screen on what kind of angle you ever like. You can also invert the screen, and there is also a small info icon there for you to tell you what exactly this feature does. The display sleep mode has also been introduced into a slider instead of using anything like an input in numbers. This is nicer, and this has always been the case with the version 2.8.1. If we do come down to the statistics, we do see that we had previously two of these sliders, one for where I could set the statistics limit and the other one where I could set the duration. Now this is one big slider, and you can make sure to slide it to whatever you like. There are a couple of pre-selective modes that you can use, so make sure to select the appropriate one that you want to use. If you scroll down on the old version, we do see that we do have the update functionality in here. This has been moved over to its own section, which is now the update section, where you can check for the latest releases, and you can also update the XOS and the firmware. If we click on check, it will tell us the latest release is the version 2.8.1, but as I said, the version 2.9.0 will be out very shortly, and as soon as you do watch this video, 2.9.0 will probably already be out. Nice new feature here is we can hover over this and we can directly click on the version that we want to take a look on. And another nice feature is we now do have release notes. If we do click on that, we see exactly what was going on this version instead of going over to GitHub. That's it basically for the version 2.9.0. It was a rather long video, but I do thank everybody for staying here and watching it all the way fully through. Make sure to update your devices. Don't forget to like and subscribe so I know you like all this content. Till then, keep hashing and see you next time.